back, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very special guest, someone that we are acquainted with and we see her around all the time. Her name is Jennifer. And Jennifer, would you please introduce yourself and your channel?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Burright. I moved here 2 years ago to Ecuador and I started a dog rescue. So I have a very amateurish YouTube channel, not as good as this one. And it's called Ecuador Street Dog Rehab. And it also has a Facebook page. And since 2 weeks after I arrived here, I've been doing dog rescue and dog training and getting them adopted. So that's what I do. That's been most of the reason that I moved here was to be able to do that.
Okay.
I can't see that. Hold on. You kind of answered it already, but you said you've been here 2 years.
Yes, I arrived. Well, the reason I chose Ecuador kind of it's kind of interesting. I had an online friend for years and years from a group that I was in, and he is a priest, an Orthodox priest in Guayaquil. When I was in the States and trying to think of a way that I could afford to live, and I had been taken out of work through a series of back surgeries and kind of find a new purpose in life. My son was grown, and I wound up getting an ESA dog because, empty nest syndrome or whatever happens to us when our children are grown. And he wound up having extreme behavioral issues. So my new hobby was dog training him. However, his issue is aggression and human aggression. So I got a lot of feedback in the States from people who wanted me to have him euthanized. But instead, I made myself a competent dog trainer so that I could manage him. And then I wanted to move someplace where we wouldn't get harassed every day and everybody wouldn't want me to kill my dog. And maybe I could use my skills to help other dogs besides just my friends and neighbors. So I was complaining to him about all these things. And he said, well, you should look at Ecuador. And so I did. And I qualified and I already knew someone here. And so I joined a bunch of Facebook groups and kind of met people that way. And really luckily, because my first day that I arrived, I lost my passport and my vaccination card. So the fact that I already knew people here was very helpful because I was stranded in Guayaquil for over a month with just my dog and me, and I did not speak any Spanish at all. I just used my translation app. Now I speak un poco español.
Yeah.
But
Just like us. Yeah.
yes, just enough to eat and get dogs adopted and explain people how to train their dogs, things that are kind of on topic for me. But then I moved here and it's been a bumpy road, but I just got my permanent residency visa. So that was nice. So
Nice.
I'm
Awesome.
in like Flynn.
Where did you come from?
Before I lived here, I was in Oregon for 2 years. And that was after my son graduated high school. I moved before that from Wisconsin to Irvine, California, because I wanted my son to go to those schools because they have really good schools in Irvine. And so it was a struggle, but I don't regret it. It's the safest city. And when I moved there, it was just my son and me. So I kind of just do everything solo with either a dog or a child, or and I move around. So, and before that, it was Wisconsin. Before that, I've lived in Maryland. I've lived in Florida. When I was in the Army, I was in Missouri, Germany. So I don't really feel from anywhere. I was born in Panama. I'm just my dad
You're a
called me a
well-rounded
gypsy and said
person.
that he wrote my addresses in pencil. Yeah.
So, what made you want to do the dog rescue here? And were you doing something similar before?
The years ago when I always trained my own dogs and I always had dogs and I always loved dogs, except for when I was in Irvine and I could not afford to live there. We did not have a dog. Really, really, when I say that my dog had behavioral problems, I mean, a hospitalized friend and dog trainers that were like,
Yes.
he was very extreme. And so, but I had all the time in the world and all my focus on him because my son was grown. And so I really got very skilled at leash handling and behavior modification. And because he's so difficult, other dogs were really easy. So it started to where I would see my neighbors struggling in the yard and so I would offer to help. And I started dog walking for my neighbors, leash training, helping them fix behavioral issues. But again, because it's the States and it's so expensive, like I couldn't barely afford to have my one dog. And the only reason I could is because he was an ESA dog. So
Right.
they
Right.
didn't charge extra for him and things like that. Or I couldn't have even done it. So I
Right.
Yeah.
thought once I lived somewhere that cost less, I could use those dog training skills and the disposable income from a lower cost of living to leave my mark on the world. I didn't feel like, because of the way people are, it's very positive only, force free, ridiculous nonsense that people outlaw tools, dog training tools, and act like telling a dog no is abuse. It's just very irrational and ridiculous and counterproductive, and is part of the reason that my dog got so extreme because I tried to work within
Mm-hmm.
those lines. All that happened was he got worse, and I knew I
Yeah.
couldn't leave an impact. I wanted to be somewhere where I could do what I want, rescue how I want, as many as I want, as many as I can afford to do. And so since I've been here, I've had a lot of, other rescues that I help. I've taken some of their disciplinary problems from other rescues and then worked with them here privately. And then it's like a board and train, but for street
Yeah.
dogs. And
Okay.
I've had, since I've
Yeah.
lived here, I've lost a couple because I was too late to rescue them, but um, I've had 12 that have come from the street and are now with new families, plus my two that I had adopted here. So now I have three. I have three of my own now
Okay.
and 12 more. I've been taking off recently because I got an injury breaking up a dog fight in May. And so I've been in a splint most of that time. It's still not fixed. I'm having doctor's appointments. So that kind of put a damper on my activities, but I still maintain I built outside of my gate. I live on the beach. So there's outside of my home, outside of my yard is a very busy street, a very dangerous street. But then on the other side of that is beach. And it's
Mm-hmm.
dangerous beach, so people don't swim there unless they're hooked to a surfboard. It's, Mar Bravo. It's very, very
Yeah.
dangerous beach. But there's a lot of stray dogs. They look sick. They're
Mm-hmm.
starving. Two of my rescues that I've had, I got from there. And so I built something that shades from the sun and has food and water that I always keep supplied. I go outside the gate and I fill up the food bowls. And now I also started buying bird seed because the birds were eating all the dog food. But there's
Yeah.
dogs, there's cats, there's birds. And so even while I'm not able to do the things I was doing when I first got here until my finger gets better, I can at least do something.
Yeah.
And I also noticed that there's been some adopters and other people that I've talked to that in Ecuador, people have a different idea about dogs. That's why nobody wants me to get
Yeah.
my dog put to sleep like to them, he's a great guard dog, and they're jealous, if anything, that he's not going to let anybody on
Right.
my property. They don't understand, of course, the
Exactly.
downsides of that. But
Yeah.
nobody here thinks I should euthanize my dog for behavioral issues. And that's very comforting. But also, they don't, not all, there's a huge section of people here who love animals and they do rescue. There's a bunch of small rescues that I work with, but I like to be autonomous. So I keep my own thing going so that I don't have to accommodate other people's wishes.
Right.
But there's a different attitude. They're not their babies. They don't, oh, the dogs, they don't even see them in
Yeah.
the street. They walk by, they're sick, they're starving, they're dying. They don't even notice. And one of my adopters told me that neither he nor his wife on either side of their family had ever had dogs. And before he met, that would be Casanova's adopter. Before they met Casanova and adopted Casanova, he said not only had he never had a dog, but he didn't like dogs. And if he saw them, he would avoid them. And so learning about dogs and getting, me showing them how to do training and leash walking and stuff like that, and the bond that he grew. Now he, his wife, his children, and then the next generations are going to have like a different attitude. So
Yeah.
now I'm hoping that besides the dogs that I place, I'm hoping my legacy is that butterfly effect. I help these families learn to love dogs, and then they grow up and their families love dogs, and maybe the whole culture will get touched by that little by little,
Yeah.
butterfly effect.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
my
Absolutely.
new way of looking at it.
Okay, it's good that you explained that in Ecuador, the people here are not for euthanization of a dog versus the US, because we have a friend who told us that here in Ecuador, a lot of dogs don't live inside the house. They're used for guard dogs. And, we hear dogs around here where we live. Sometimes, most of the time, they're in the house, but if the family leaves, they leave the dog outside. And so the dog will bark a lot. And I understand the dog is only barking because he's looking for its owners. And when are they coming back? And so
That
it's
is
it's doing the
separation
job.
anxiety.
Yes.
Yeah. It's doing its
Mm-hmm.
job. No one's coming because it's barking, and they know that the dog is there, but the dog is looking for their owner, so that's why you hear a lot of barking. But yeah, it's
My
great
dogs
that
are
you
trained to
explain
not
that.
do that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I will say, for me personally, there's been a couple of dogs that did originally have owners. And I will say that there are some dogs with owners here in worse condition than the street dogs that you
Yeah.
go by, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
not only, like you said, do they just use them for work and see them kind of as a functional tool, but they don't receive proper nutrition. They don't receive, some of that is apathy, some of it is ignorance, and a lot of it is
Hmm.
poverty. You'll see a lot of, if people can't afford to do the stuff they want to do, they're definitely not going to spend money on their dog. And what I see is they'll have a dog for a year or two. It dies from tick fever or gets hit by a car or something along those lines. And then they get another dog. It's really sad, but unfortunately, it's way more difficult to help the ones that have owners. I have had neighbors who are guardian families, and so that would be a family who watches a homeowner's home when they're not living there. It would be people who have beach houses, because we live in Salinas, as you know, and
Hmm.
so people have like a second home here. They will have guardian families that live here full time, but they don't get paid very much money. And so
Okay.
I've lived in a couple of different places, and I have had success with my neighbors that once I help them financially with veterinary care or proper nutrition or things like that. So there's a lot of, besides the dogs that I train, I donate a lot of food. I get a lot of dogs spayed and neutered for people who can't afford it, and other veterinary care. There's been a few of my dogs I adopted out to families like that were very poor and couldn't afford the kind of care, the monthly flea and tick prevention pills, things like that I want for my adoptees. So there's about a half dozen other dogs besides mine that I still pay for all of their veterinary care. So I actually did not reduce my cost of living when I moved here the way I wanted to. I
Yeah.
am going to, moving forward, only be able to adopt out to people who can afford to take care of those things on their own, just because it's not sustainable for me. I already have so many, um,
Yeah.
Right.
that I won't be able to do that anymore. But I think a lot of it, like I said, is ignorance. They never had dogs. They never talked to anybody that
Hmm.
sees them as a part of the family, or, a baby or love, whatever, however people see their dogs. And once they've come around to see, I show them the kind of relationship they can have with their dog. You take your dog for a walk on a leash. I have a bunch of leashes, slip leashes, that I hand out to people when I see them on this dangerous road with their dog running in and
Yeah.
out of traffic. I've seen a dog get hit here. I cried for 2 days. So but once they know, once you point it out to them, they just never heard it. You don't know what you don't know. And then there's
Exactly.
a lot of these people here. Once they do know, then they start to do better. You know better, you do better. There's other people, just like anywhere, you try and help them, and it doesn't matter. All you can do is just kind of disconnect from the situation so you're not heartbroken over their animals, but they'll
Right.
never change. There's always going to be people like that everywhere. I would like, by the time I'm done here, I don't need to be known or seen, or I would just like my impact to be felt through kind of the
Right.
dog community, and for them to. I did also one kitten. I did find a kitten that was stuck in my doctor's office, so I adopted out one kitten. Also, I had to pay a lot of money to send him to Quito, because it's even harder to find a family for cats than it is for
Yeah.
dogs. It's
Yeah.
tough.
Well, I'm not a cat
And
fan,
it's
so
sad. It's
I
hard to
can't
not
speak
be
on that
sad a
one.
lot.
Do you accept donations? Do you receive donations for the
I
animals?
do. That's a great question. About a year ago, I had my first sponsor, um, because I did post about some of the dogs that I pay for their regular care. And one of my friends said, well, you should see if somebody wants to sponsor that dog. And I got my first sponsor, and she hung in there for a few months. I think it's hard for people to keep their enthusiasm. At the end of the day, once they come through and they're one of my rehab dogs, they're always my dog. Like, for even when they get adopted, like, if anything ever didn't work out, they come back to me. That's my dog. So, I do still have one sponsor left. Sometimes when I have a big project, I'll get um, people who send PayPal or bank transfers or Venmo for the project, for the dog or whatever. But mostly mostly it's come out of my money, and I've actually gotten a little carried away, and I need to rein it in, because I was hoping to save money for later when I'm older and my income is even less. But instead, I went through everything that I had, and, building enclosures, because for safety, the dogs that I get here aren't the easy peasy, just put them in a home and
Yeah.
they have problems. So they
Right.
could be dog aggressive, or that's what I've had a couple dog fights on the property, and I really need the enclosures to,
To
manage
give a
things
rehab.
safely for
Yeah.
everyone. Right.
Yeah.
But I live right on the beach, and the salt and just kills everything. Things that I just built less than a year ago are already like rusting and rotting, and so it's also not
Yeah.
sustainable. It's one of those trial and error kind of things. But I'm trying something new. I'm trying, do something. A lot of people like to rescue, but don't know how to fix behavior problems with the dogs that they have. So they rescue the dogs. The dogs have things about their personality that the, people don't want. So I eliminate that.
Yeah.
And so here's a cute dog. He knows how to walk on a leash. It doesn't bark. We don't nuisance bark around here. We don't jump on people around here. I don't teach them everything because I don't know what language the family that's going to adopt speaks anyway. So to teach them kind of commands like my own dogs would be fruitless. Most families don't do anything even close to what I do. So it would all be gone anyway, but I do teach them the basics.
Yeah.
You wait until I say it's okay to eat. You don't chew stuff. You don't steal stuff. You don't nuisance bark. You don't jump on people, things like that. And I get all that
Yeah.
fixed, and then they're ready for adoption. So I think that's
Right.
why I have an easier time than a lot of the rescues. There's rescues that, have the same dogs for years and years. You have to learn to say no, because if you take on more than you can
Exactly.
chew, then they all suffer. I'm pretty good about boundaries, not as good as I should be, or I wouldn't be injured, but I'm pretty good about, it's about, for me, quality of care. I can't help them all, but the ones I do help, I want it
Right.
to be of high quality help, like real focused. And,
Yeah.
what was that story where they, a boy takes a turtle that's going the wrong way on the beach and puts him in the ocean, and somebody walks by and says, it's not going to make any difference putting that one turtle back in the ocean. And he said,
But
but
the
it will
one
for that one turtle.
that matters.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
it matters to that turtle. Like, I think people just don't see the individual lives as being as meaningful. You can't fix all the problems. There's so many problems. There's problems back in the US,
Yeah.
obviously. There's problems here.
Yeah.
Can't fix them
Yes.
all. So I try to focus all my energy on the things that I can do that other people can't. I feel like ethically,
Right.
if you possess a skill or a talent that is needed in your community and other people do not possess it, you are ethically obligated to share that with the community. Like, for me, that's how I feel about it. I feel like because I
Yeah.
now have skills that other people don't, if I do not share those, that feels wrong. Like, then who does it? When I needed help, there was nobody to help me. When I was struggling with my
Right.
dog,
Right.
everybody just kept making it worse. Nobody could help me. And I realized I got to save myself here. And so I did.
Mhm.
And so I have empathy now for people who are struggling, like, their dog running through the house when the fireworks go off, or blah, all the things that happen.
Yeah.
If I don't help them, I know how it feels to be struggling with those things.
Yeah.
And all the feedback you get is kill your dog,
I
and
know. It's
I used to
crazy.
get harassed on
What
the
are
streets in the US for muzzling my dog, which I did for other people's safety. Our
Yeah.
worst incident was in February of 2020. A formerly positive only dog trainer that is no longer positive only. I felt really bad about this after, and I did take him to some seminars with me. So, and he's really blown up since then. But in February of 2020, we had an equipment failure, and my dog snapped his leather collar and got a hold of him, and I had to physically tackle him with my body and get him off. It was a bloodbath, and he needed surgeries. He needed to get pins in his hand, reconstruct his hand. And he could have, if I wouldn't have been an owner who jumps on top of their dog instead of like screaming, he could have been dead. There was a lot of blood.
Wow.
So I understand why people wanted me to put my dog down, and I considered it a lot. But then because I'm so attention to detail and so structured, I just knew that I could give him a quality of life if I just worked at it. And I have. I've gotten, we went from California to Oregon and then got all the way to Ecuador and been in, this house, that house, this Airbnb. And I have been able to, that was the worst incident, but also the last incident.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So he's pretty extreme. And it's hard to find people that can help me work with him. My dream would be to get my own personal dog, that one from the States with me, my Drago. My dream would be to be able to have friends come over and him like greet them. And I don't know that that'll ever happen. I've kind of let
Yeah.
that go a lot. But because he's so extreme, all the other dogs are, by comparison, very much easier and very manageable. So
Yeah.
I think because of Drago, if it wasn't for him, there are so many dogs that would not be alive or not be having a high quality of life because the only reason that I have skills is because he was so difficult, so
Right.
without him, I wouldn't have saved any other dogs. So I feel like
Right.
he's
Right.
a blessing to everyone. And it's good that I did not euthanize him. It
Yeah.
wound up being
So take a
a
pause.
win in the end. While I do understand people's perspective, I would feel terrible if anything ever happened again. I would do anything to, prevent that from happening.
So, what are your biggest challenges? I mean, I know you already spoke about like the monetary issues and things of that nature, but what have been your biggest challenges other than that?
Primarily, I would say coming without knowing Spanish first has been my biggest challenge. Because then you have to rely on finding translators and paying translators and all that kind of stuff. So I would say the language barrier I would recommend to anybody moving, like if you can learn Spanish first, like learn Spanish first. But I knew that immersion would eventually work for me. I have kind of an internal pattern recognition, so I assumed that once I was here, hearing it, seeing it, my natural pattern recognition would kind of pull it together for me. It hasn't happened as quickly as I would like, but I think that's because I do a fair amount of socialization with expats. But I do have, workers and neighbors who don't speak any English, so I get to practice with them. And noise, I would say the Ecuadorian relationship with noise has been a struggle. I have dog ears. So if somebody's got like their bass vibrating my house, it hurts my ears, and that's a thing.
Yeah.
They go, oh, look at this beautiful quiet beach, and then they go to the beach and pull out their speakers and play their music as loud as they could possibly play it with boom, 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 booming bass, and that's like a thing. And it hasn't been a struggle for me because I heard about the fireworks before I came, and so I already had trained my dog to not respond to those before we moved. And I've worked with my other dogs since then too. But yeah, noise. So language, noise, and for Selena specifically, because I've only been I stayed in Guayaquil for a month and a half after I lost my passport, and then I've lived in Salinas the rest of that time. Salinas could be so beautiful if it wasn't for all the garbage. The garbage that I walk up and down the beach. If I go on a short walk on the beach with my dogs, I can take 2 large garbage bags and fill it with on any given day. They come here, they, make all their noise and drink all their beers and leave all their garbage everywhere. And like live on this beautiful beach and there's this whole road and it's like people just dump their trash out on the side of the road. So the whole road on the way to Punta Canero where I live, garbage, 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 garbage. And I don't know, it's sad. So I guess garbage, noise, and language would be my 3 biggest challenges since I moved here
Yeah.
that would be different than the States. Those would be my new
Now, do they have
challenges.
trash? Do they have trash cans like along the
Yes,
beach or on the beach?
yes. There are. They have these big. It's like these big square things that are elevated because if you put your trash out on the street, then the street dogs will rip them open, and now
Okay.
your trash is everywhere. So they have, yeah, podiums. So that's what I do. I take my garbage bag. They will be 10 feet from there, 6 feet from there, 5 feet from there, 20 feet from there. Garbage right there on next to it. And don't put their garbage on and the garbage men, the garbage picker uppers are great. Like the garbage truck guys,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're on top of
Mhm.
stuff. Like you put out your garbage every day, they're there to get it every day. But they don't put it in the garbage thing. What I do wish that they would do here, I don't know if any of your other interviewees have talked about transito, how they stop drivers and
Yeah.
get money from them. What I really wish they would do is that with litterers. Like if you litter, have those transito guys or an equivalent of that, find them. Like you put that trash on the ground, you give me money. And it would be good jobs for like I said, I've had 3 back surgeries and I am picking up garbage. It doesn't take me very long before can't even hardly stand up. Those would be great jobs for young people. And it would make Salinas that much more beautiful. And then more people would want to come here and then it would pay for itself. Like it just seems like it would make more sense for them to clean up the garbage, maintain the garbage, find people for doing it, and then use the funds from the more people that will come when it's not full of garbage. It's just it has so much potential.
Well,
I see so much
yeah.
potential.
Yeah. And with the new mayor, I see that he is trying. So, it takes time before you can see things change and an improvement in
Heard that.
places. Even though we're on the Malecon, he has painted the rails on the beach. He does have a sand, what do you call it?
The thing that like combs the beach or whatever, he's got one of those now.
Right.
Um,
And I think what
Oh,
he's
we
doing
could
is
really
by him having,
use something over here. We're like a
yeah,
redheaded stepchild over here, kind of neglected
yeah.
because it's not a fun beach. There's no, there's like an ice cream guy that rides up and down with his bicycle and
Yeah.
one ceviche stand. And that's really it.
Right.
I was advised that maybe I should take a video of the garbage along the road one of these times and post it, post it to the mayor's page and maybe he could see. There's a
Yeah.
development there
Yeah.
that they cleaned up their area. So I know it can be done. It can be done relatively quickly. Like if they made
Yeah.
it a project. So I was advised to do that. I'll probably do that one of these days when I'm thinking of it, when I'm in a taxi instead of on the bus. Oh, that's
Yeah.
another struggle is there's a handful of Ecuadorians that don't like having expats here. So like, for example, there's only one bus that goes by where I live. It's the 14th. And one of those bus drivers never will pick me up. He will go by me. If I stand in the street in front of him to wave so he can't pretend he's ignoring me, he will drive around me. And, people like that I had a neighbor like that too, didn't like. So then you get but there's a lot of people who are very nice and welcoming and wonderful, but there's some other ones that don't like us here and they want to make sure that
Yeah.
we know you're not welcome. But again, that's everywhere. It's not as bad as in the
Yeah.
States. At least when I come here and I can't speak Spanish, but they see I'm
no,
trying, nobody has ever given me a hard time about that. Nobody's ever been, yeah, you're going to live here. You should
Yeah.
speak the language.
right.
Never. They might laugh at me a little if it
Yeah.
sounds funny but mostly they
Yeah.
just really appreciate the effort. I know some expats that have lived here for
Right.
10 plus years, 15
Yeah.
years, can't say anything, like nothing. like not even like to ask for a fork or nothing. And it's just like, how do you get by?
Yeah.
But, and ironically, a lot of those people would be probably some of the ones who'd be like, hey, you're in America, speak the language, or you know what I'm saying? Like they'd be the
Yeah.
same people that would
Yeah.
Yeah.
chew out somebody else who came to live in the States for not speaking English, but then they go move somewhere
Yeah.
else and
Yeah.
refuse to even try. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I
It's crazy.
I was
It's
And
kind of
crazy.
surprised.
we've
A lot
seen
of the
it.
people I was trying to get away from there are also here. Not as many, of course,
Yeah.
but there's some. I was surprised how many. I was like, oh, but here
Yeah.
your dollar goes a lot further. So they get to come here and live like princes and princesses and kings and queens compared to how they could live on their same income in the States. So, I mean, I understand it, but it's a
Right.
little ironic, you know.
To have that mentality and then move to a country and you don't want to even try to learn the language.
Or,
Yeah.
or learn the
Exactly.
culture.
Oh, and
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
now that we're speaking of struggles, but this isn't just mine, because of the never having a winter this year and the drought, and then the electricity, you know, is not the
Yeah.
electricity from the Amazon is not up to snuff, and so we're all having daily power outages just because the country can't make enough electricity. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say that's been a struggle. That's
A
something
struggle
that
as
had
well.
I known that was going to happen before I moved, it might have made me reconsider. If that's going to be indefinite, that's going to be tough
Right.
to adjust to, partly
Right. Yeah.
because where I
Yeah.
live, it's never on schedule. It's you can look up the schedule
Oh.
and whatever it says, it's not
Yeah.
going to happen at that time. And a lot of times it's different on different days. So it's like, surprise, you have your stuff in the oven.
Yeah.
Too bad, you know, or it's just, so that I would say
Yeah.
that would be the other struggle, but that's everybody. And at least I have the means to work around it. I feel really bad for the people who have businesses here and really can't afford to lose any business, or even the expats who work online and do their jobs remotely,
Mm-hmm.
having that kind of thing. So that would be tough. But you know, every place has pros and
Yeah. Ups and
cons, good
downs.
and bad.
Yeah. Besides working with the dogs and the animals in general, what else do you like to do just to enjoy yourself?
Well, since I've been here, you know, it's kind of when in Rome. So there's a lot of retirees in this area. So I'm actually one of the younger people that lived here. You know, as far as the general expat population, I'm, you know, 15 to 20 years younger than most of them here in Salinas, not, you know, for Ecuador in general.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I do what they do. You know, I go to cribbage tournaments. We play cribbage matches. We do like a Thursday cribbage, and we have Tuesday movies. I've seen you guys at the Tuesday movies.
Hmm.
Yesterday, I got to see Aquaman, my
Yeah.
boyfriend,
Oh, we missed
Jason
that.
Yeah, we
Momoa.
did.
Oh my
By
God.
the time I was
Jason
ready,
Momoa.
I was like, it'll been
I
too
got to
late.
see my husband on the screen. So yes, and I actually really lucked out when I lost my passport and I was struggling and alone. One of the people that lives here, my friend Parisa, she reached out a hand to me while I was drowning and really pulled me out of that and kind of helped me network into such a nice group of people. I really, you know, there's a lot of expats around, but the ones that I got to meet, I feel really lucky. I like got the best ones. I got the best ones, and that was real lucky for me. So I guess I'm kind of living like a retiree without ever gotten to retire, but you know,
Yeah. Same.
yeah, but it's okay because I have a bad back anyway. You know, a lot of the stuff I want to do, I'm not
Yes.
supposed to do. So I just,
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
do what other people do. And they always are having like parties and get togethers. And I think I'm going to kind of step back away from that. It's gotten a little COVID-y again. You know, I just
Right.
got COVID for my first time a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I have a really different perspective about it now that I had it. It was
Yeah.
horrible. And I mean, I knew, but you know, but you don't know until, and
Mm.
so I feel
Right.
like for me, I think I'm going to be doing Tuesday movies and then, you know, Thursday cribbage. And really that's it. That's all I'm going to do. And lunches with friends. I like to do lunches with friends. Anything around food and eating I'm all about it. Like,
So, do you have any future plans, any big things coming up when it comes to either the animals, your YouTube channel, or anything else?
you know, I actually I don't have a lot of followers. I have like 200 and something followers. When I left home, I only had 7. So for me, it's kind of, you know, it was just something
It's
I
a
did
slow. Trust me,
for
it's a
like
slow process.
my family and friends. I was like, this is, if I just make videos and I post them, it'll like document. My channel used to be called Jennifer's Journey to Ecuador. And then it was just kind of me talking about what I was doing to prepare for the move. Just kind of a lot of me talking, showing how I was training my dog, things like that. And then after I started getting the rescue dogs, that's when I changed the name of the channel. But some of my devoted followers are like, because I used to post more, you know, when I was having other dogs here. And I feel like people aren't interested in my own personal dogs. I have my 3 dogs, so I don't post about that. And since I haven't had any rescues, what I need to do is I need another surgery on my finger because it doesn't bend. And I need to do
Oh,
so
wow.
that's as far as it bends. And I can't leash train properly. I can't do the things I need to do until my finger's fixed. So my goals for 2024 are to get, after the dog fights here, we had a little disruption in my personal pack, fallout from some of the dogs I brought in. So I want to get my pack running perfectly smoothly. I want to get my finger bending again. And I'm one of the only people who gained weight when I moved here. So, like, because before I moved here, I was keto. So I was like a healthy weight and really didn't eat. I ate like 20 grams of carbs, net carbs a day or less. And I moved here and it's really carb-tastic, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I went hard on the donuts, the bid donuts
Yeah.
and papas fritas with everything. And
Yeah.
so I've chunked up. So 2024, to get my pack running smoothly, my finger working, my body back in like, you know, more fit of condition. And then I want to start bringing in the dogs again, you know, kind of 1 or 2 at a time into my well-oiled machine. I
Yeah.
think it just, you know, it got put upon me before I even had my suitcases unpacked. I had 3 dogs from other rescues
Right.
at my house before I even unpacked my suitcases. So I never had a chance to get something running first. The way I like to work is plan and prepare and do all that stuff, but I've always been kind of treading water here. And so
Right.
this year I'm going to get that squared away. And hopefully there's one of your other interviewees, Randy, from, I don't know if it was last year or earlier this year. She got some property to do a rescue. And I think my new plan, I'm not working as a part of their group, but I'm working tangent with their group. And for those dogs, instead of only having 1 or 2 here, I was going to work with the dogs that they have on that rescue property. Once they get the rescue property, so that when people do find dogs, there's somewhere that they can go. There's some place that they could be safe and get medical treatment. And then after they're healthy, I can help get them ready for adopters. And so that's kind of my plan. And that way my dogs also get a normal home life instead of it always being like they live in a board and train. I
Yeah.
don't want to do as, you know, I didn't have any role models for what I was doing. So it's been kind of trial and error, but I want to have my most impact. So I think helping out the other rescues with their problem dogs and helping them find good matches in adopters. That's going to be my biggest impact. So that's my plan. I have followers like, where have you been? Are you okay? Where's your video? Like, I haven't seen a video in a long time. I just haven't had, because of my surgery and physical
Right.
therapy and
But
splint
you'll
and
get
all
back
that, I
there.
haven't been able to do. I will. It's hard to wait. It's been since May. This day,
Right.
Mayo. I need to get it
So can
fixed.
you, real quick, just tell everyone where they can reach you, whether it be Facebook, your YouTube, anywhere else, especially if someone wants to, maybe send you a donation. Go ahead and give yourself the most shameless plug possible.
Well, my channel is Ecuador Street Dog Rehab. I do have Dogs of Salinas PayPal for people who want to give donations from the States. If they want to contact me, there's a Facebook Messenger for Ecuador Street Dog Rehab. You can use that. You can comment on one of my videos on my channel, or I do have a WhatsApp. It may change in the future, my WhatsApp, but
Yeah.
right now it is +1-949-662-7839. So that's my WhatsApp, and I always check that daily. So if somebody wanted to reach me, I use WhatsApp for everything. So Facebook Messenger, comment on one of my
Everyone does.
videos,
Yes.
or WhatsApp. Like I said, I do have animals that I'm always like, my vet bills every month are around my same as my rent. So I'm
Right.
always accepting of donations because, spays and neuters and all the medications and stuff, it adds up when you have multiple dogs.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well,
Oh, you're
thank you,
welcome.
Jennifer. We really, really appreciate you giving us this opportunity for the interview. And, we're going to see you around. We'll see
Yeah.
you at the next movie night,
Oh, of
movie day.
course.
And we're
We'll have to do lunch. That's one of my
very
social
happy.
activities.
Yeah.
And we're happy that you are one of the rescues here for the street dogs in
Yeah.
Ecuador, in Salinas. And, once you get back healthy, we know that you'll be back out there doing what you do best.
And all of a sudden, we won't see
Yes.
any more dogs on the street.
Oh, God, if only. I wish. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. You guys have a lovely day.